Permitted the advocates for His Excellency the Vice President to respond to the application by the Chief of Civil Service, Mr. Kithure.
That is correct.
And they did that, and we didn't have an opportunity to comment on their response at all. So I will try to be very, very, as usual, very quick and respond in summary, but I will need about 10 minutes.
Okay.
And my learned friend, Mr. Gatia, Senior Counsel, also tells me he has a request to make. Thank you.
Madam Chief Justice, you recall yesterday how gracious I was. I donated 32 minutes to court.
Are you claiming it back?
No. No, I will not do that because the court has work to do. All that I request is 5 minutes, nothing more than 5 minutes of your time. We are doing quite well this morning. Thank you so much. I don't know who will go first, whether it's my senior or ourselves.
I think you can go
first. Okay. Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice, members of the Supreme Court, just to point out that there were specific questions that were addressed, for example, to counsel acting for the 4 commissioners. And we would like to know at what point we are expected to respond to those questions. After the petitioners. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chief Justice and members of the court. I seek a little clarification because similarly we had several questions directed to us which we thought we would react to before we make our rejoinder. And I thought yesterday you had clearly stated that we'd have 30 minutes. We had about 27 questions. Are we at liberty to proceed to answer those questions right away?
Sorry, Senior Counsel Orengo, you have 1 hour to respond, but I hear you saying you need more than 1 hour because of answering the questions. And therefore you're asking for another 30 minutes.
With a little bonus.
We can see what we can do with 1 hour. If you extend maybe 15 minutes.
It would not be enough. There's a very important question which just...
It's all right, because even the time we are wasting now, you could be
minutes.
answering.
Yeah, so
Yes.
in the 30
We're just
minutes...
asking you to be kind, because we really have to get to the real business of writing the judgment.
Thank you.
And we don't have much time.
In the 30 minutes that we'll be answering those questions,
Yes.
my lady and my lords, you'll be addressed by my learned friend, Mr. Otiende Amolo, particularly on the question of turnout, which was asked by Justice Wanjala, and Firoz Norji, Senior Counsel, Paul Mwangi, and Ms. Julie Soweto will address you in those 30 minutes. And I invite Senior Counsel Otiende Amolo to address you on the first question.
Yes.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Yes. Senior Counsel Oraro, please, or is it Gatia?
My senior is beckoning my team. Do you allow us?
Yes. 5 minutes.
Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, distinguished judges of the Supreme Court, actually 3 questions were asked that are relevant to our submissions yesterday, paraphrased as follows. 1, if the National Security Advisory Council 4 knew the results before they went there, and 2, why would the result not be announced the next day to build consensus, and 4, what would be the effect of the non-involvement of the 4 commissioners in the verification and tallying vis-a-vis Article 138(3)(c). Our response is as follows. 1, it is our submission that all factors point to an inescapable conclusion that the 4 members of the National Security Advisory Council, by the time they went to the Bomas of Kenya National Tallying Center, and by the time the head of public service placed a call on the returning officer of the presidential election, by that time they knew. And this is our evidence. By the morning of the 15th, letters had been issued by the returning officer of the presidential election, Mr. Chebukati, to all the presidential candidates and members of their family to be at the National Tallying Center for the declaration of results at 3 p.m. on that day. And my client already had received that invitation. I believe the other presidential candidates had those letters. And therefore, they knew by the time these state officers went to the National Tallying Center, they knew that the verification tallying had been completed, and what was pending was the declaration of the final result. It is our submission, Chief Justice, distinguished judges of the Supreme Court, that these 4 went to the National Tallying Center not for any other reason, but to try to interfere with the declaration of results and thereby try to alter the sovereign will of the people of Kenya, which had already been verified and tallied in accordance with Article 138(3)(c). 2, it is our response that the results could not be announced the following day because, according to the affidavit of the chairperson of the commission, and I'm using the word chairperson on advice by Justice Ndungu, which I agree with entirely, that by that time, it was not possible for any form of consensus, because then the follow-up question was, I think from Justice Lenaola, why, for example, the returning officer would not have waited for an extra day, which he had, to build consensus on the 4 walk-away commissioners. It was not possible. It was very clear that the intention was to try and veto the will of the people, and therefore the chairman had to declare those results. Number 3, the 4 who left also, their colleagues had been injured. And so the chairman had, in our view, make the announcement that day because of the gravity of the situation. Finally, the question that this court ought to ask itself is whether the working away of 4 commissioners at the tail end of a process which they have admitted was complete, except the declaration, can veto the sovereign will of the people of Kenya. Can the walking away of commissioners at the tail end of a process they have been involved in be the basis of vetoing the right to franchise in Article 38 of the Constitution, which is the expression of the voter. Thank you, and we prayerfully submit.